Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Athlete to Entrepreneur panel. This is our eighth Athlete to Entrepreneur panel. We're excited to have you here with us as always, especially on this Memorial Day weekend. You could be anywhere else in the world right now, but you're here with us. Even if you're listening to the recording of this, thank you for being here. As always, we have another amazing lineup of panelists ready to share their stories with you of how they went from being athletes to entrepreneurs. And we're going to start this thing out first with the one and only Jen Fry. So I'm going to give her a quick introduction, and then we'll bring her right on. Jen Fry is the founder of Jen Fry Talks, which is a social justice education firm that uses conversation to educate and empower those within athletics through an anti-racist lens on issues of race, inclusion, intersectionality, diversity, and equity. Her organization facilitates dialogue with small and large groups, athletic departments, teams, staff, administrations, and much, much more. They advise on best practices that create equitable searches, onboarding practices, methods of retaining staff, supporting student athletes, coaches, and community building. Last but not least, she is currently working on her PhD at Michigan State University. Please welcome the Athlete to Entrepreneur, Jen Fry.
Hello.
What's going on, Jen?
Chilling. Saturday afternoon, just chilling.
I respect it. Big chilling. I see. I'm excited that you took some time out to share with us today. I wanted to jump right in because I know that you have quite a track record. I believe it's 15 years as a coach, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I wanted to ask you is, how did you decide, having already built that track record, what made you decide to found Jen Fry Talks and go into this realm where you decided you wanted to speak and spread your message? What was that decision like for you?
Well, I'll tell you first off, it wasn't that thought out. Like, you're making it seem like I really thought it out, and I had no thought at all. I was at a school that had 300 Black students out of 6,000. So I just started to pay attention more to kind of race issues. I grew up in Arizona, 5 minutes from the Mexican border. So a majority minority city. My volleyball coach was a Black female, track coach a Black male, soccer coach a Latinx male. I was always around people who looked like me. So I never was the only one. As I started going more to my different schools, I just started paying attention more. And then when I got to my last school where I coached at Elon, I just started paying more attention to race issues. And I realized that conversations within athletic departments, they weren't talking about the topics I wanted to talk about, nor the way I wanted to talk about it. They talked about, I felt like, very superficial, and I wanted to get in deep. And so I just literally, I had no thought process. I gave myself to November 1st. And I said, if on November 1st, I don't say I'm resigning, then I'm staying with coaching. Like, this is it. I'm not going to try and do this other stuff. And then I just literally, it's easy to tell friends and family what you want to do until you have to talk to the person who pays you. Then it's a whole different story, right? And so luckily I had a friend who said, if you're thinking of this, then these are ways to get your resume ready, so that you're not just jumping in right cold turkey, that you at least have shown some stuff on your resume of a track record you can talk about. And so November 1st came, and we had like our meeting. You know, when you always have like meetings with staff, the person running always says the same thing at the end. And so right when she said it, I just like word vomited and was like, I'm resigning in 2 weeks. And she was looking crazy. I was looking crazy because I was like, I just said it. But I knew I couldn't be there anymore. I had other things I wanted to do. And I didn't know what it was. I just knew it wasn't done the way I wanted to. So I was like, I'm just going to figure this out. So I left, and I started blogging. I got a job at Duke. And around this time is when Colin Kaepernick kneeled. So I started to get a lot of calls about, how do we handle this? Our administration doesn't want us to do it. Our Black athletes want to do it. How do I support them? How do I keep my job? And people were like, well, you should look at speaking on this. I'm like, what? Speaking on it? And slowly I just started to build it out. And it really started with me blogging and figuring out what my voice is going to be. Who is my audience? What do I want to talk about? How do I want to talk about? What are my non-negotiables? And just really said, my vehicle for change has been coaching for 15 years. And now maybe it's something different.
There's a lot there that I could pull out, Jen, but I don't want to have you on here for 3 hours. I know you got things to do today. But one of the things I do want to point out is what you shared about giving yourself that deadline. You said November 1st, I'm putting my foot down, I'm getting out of here. And that's so important for people listening, because I know we have a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs on here, people who are entrepreneurs. And when you come from an athletic background, and you know this, everything was always clearly mapped out for us. Mm-hmm. So for you to say, I need to have a clear date where I'm breaking away from this so I can step into what's next, I think that was really strong that you did that. And then I know you had people, was it a series of people telling you, hey, I think you need to speak about this? Or was it just that one person that had you think, okay, I need to really do this and take this
There
seriously?
was quite a few people who were like, have you thought about being a professional speaker on this? You know, the content you talk about, the way you deliver it, you could have something. And so quite a few people told me that, but I really didn't understand fully what it meant. Like when I jumped, I didn't have any idea. And I think that helped me out, because when you're going to something that you really don't know about, I feel like you're going to grind more because you don't have this track, right? Imagine you're running down this field, and when you have to like cut down the branches and stuff, you're going to grind more versus you're just running on something that you know how it's going to be. And so I was really lucky where like people weren't doing what I was doing. There was like a company doing it, but no one was like doing it how I did. So I just was like, I'm just going to do it the way I want to do it. And other people might not like it, but I'm okay with that because I think this is the way it should be done.
That's a great analogy right there of cutting through the branches instead of having a clear path. I love that you touched on that. So take us from the moment where it just starts out with blogging. You got people telling you in your ear, Jen, you should talk, you should speak on these things. How does it go from that to you stepping on stage for the first time? What was that process like?
So I think the first thing to understand is as an athlete or a coach, you have a shit ton of transferable skills. Like, I don't think people realize how much. Like, I was a coach of a team of 20 people. I was managing a business, budgeting, right? Recruiting, staffing, reviews, equipment, like you do everything. And so that prepared me when I went to Duke, because I was able to do so much so quickly that I was in the job. I'd be like, okay, I'm doing this, this, and this. And they're like, wait, you can do it all? I'm like, yeah, that was done like 10 minutes ago. Oh, you need me to develop all this programming, do all the scheduling? Oh, it's done. And so I was in a job that allowed me to have a free flowing of ideas because I was so good in it, because I had so many transferable skills. So I'm in this job coordinating programs while also thinking of what is Gen Fry Talks going to be? What is it going to look like? And I did a lot of market research, right? Like my partner, he laughs at me before because he was like, you're always looking at the competitor. I need to know everything about who is in this industry with me. So I'm doing all the market research. I'm watching their webinars. I'm listening to them. I need to know, what am I going against, to see what I need to do to make it different, right? So many people I've talked to, I'm like, well, did you look at this, this, and this? No. Well, then if you didn't look at those things, how do you even know if your product can be better? Like, you need to do as much market research as possible. And I was doing that. I mean, I am like the FBI. I will look at everything. I will go back to when they started. I will go to where they're at now. I mean, I looked at everything to get a good understanding of what my company needs to be like in order to move forward. And so I think another thing is that people don't understand, sometimes the job you're in is just meant for you to build your company. I hear so many people who are like, no, I need to be in a job, being busy and doing this. Why? You need time to build your company. You need legit hours to build your company. And Duke gave me that, right? Because I did my job so well, I can sit there and think about, okay, these are things that I need to work on. And it just gave me more time, right? When you do your job well, you're going to have more time. And that's what it gave me. It allowed me to sit there and think about the things I needed to do to make my company, to make it excel. And so literally also, if you talk to a friend of mine, Jen Hunter, who's with the Trailblazers, I was out grinding, getting testimonials, talking to people, like doing all these things all the time. I would reaching out to people all the time to see if I could talk to them. What are they looking for? And then really, I mean, I've been on kind of some small stages, but then in February of 19, I did my TED Talk. And that's just a different stage. Like, being on a stage is fine, but being on that red dot, like, shit gets real, right? Like, it is a different mentality on that red dot. And the interesting thing is, I was so afraid that I would lose my train of thought. And I was petrified. And literally, I'm there and it happened. And I have my little note cards where I had them. And then right in the middle, I lost my train of thought. And for like you speaking, it feels like it's 13 hours. But for everyone else, it was probably just a breath. And I was able to read my note, get through it, and keep moving. And so for me, that was a big thing, because like my worst fear happened and I got through it, right? Like it happened. I'm on that stage. I literally wanted to look up and be like, I forgot. But I was like, just stay in it. It came back to me and I got through it. And I still haven't watched the TED Talk to this day. But my friends are like, we couldn't even tell. But when you're in it, it feels like it's forever. And so sometimes the worst thing you worry about will happen and you will get through it and be like, shit, I got through that. And I was so afraid of it. And so it went from there and then the next thing was I was at the NCAA Inclusion Forum. And from there, I was like, I feel like I'm going to be really big. Like, I feel like it's going to be big. And so that's when I was like, well, I want to do my PhD full time. And Michigan State was giving me that opportunity. I said, you know what, if I bust, at least I got a little $19,000 a year where I can still pay my rent and all that good stuff. I mean, rent in Lansing was like $650 a month. So at least I can afford that. And I just felt like I was going to get big because the way I delivered, the topics that I talked about were things that what people really wanted to hear and chew through. And that's kind of what I gave people. And that's what I give people now is just a different way of talking about this. But I mean, like you asked people who've been with me through the trenches, it was a long process to really cultivate my brand, what I'm talking about, and also doing it in a way that's not creating harm because I'm all about the money, right? Like people are like, I'm all about the money, but you're creating harm. And so I focus on that where I'm not creating harm just based because I'm solely about the money. Like you can't do that. You have to realize in this work that if you center not creating harm, it means sometimes you're going to have to say no and be okay with that.
Folks, we are having a masterclass right now from Jen Fry. Folks, do you see why this woman is a highly sought after speaker? My goodness. You took me there too when you were talking about forgetting your place on stage. I was over here. I saw that moment. I'm over here. My armpits started sweating. I was getting nervous. Like, my goodness. Wait, let me see what Joyce said. Joyce, first of all, thank you for being here. You must know your non-negotiables. Joyce left another comment earlier where she was talking about transferable skills. That was the one I wanted to touch on. And I think you've already given us so much, but I want to take a step out for you to give some advice for a second. Because to Joyce's point, and once again, thank you, Joyce. Everybody, make sure you follow I Am Joyce Johnson, the sales queen. Tap in with Joyce. But her point about transferable skills is huge. And I think sometimes something I always talk about is how athletes, we can go anywhere and be the top person there because we have that mindset. Like you said, as a coach, you can go anywhere and be the top person because you've run a business, you've managed a team. But I think it's so important to pick the right thing. Otherwise, you might just be spinning your wheels. Like I think about my first job out of college was doing sales for Xerox. If I would have stayed with that, here I am 8 years later, I might be a, vice president or regional manager of copy machine sales, but that's not who I am. That's not what I'm about. So can you just give some advice to those people listening, whether they're former athletes or not, people who want to become entrepreneurs, carve out their own lane? How do you figure out the process? And I know yours wasn't as planned out, like you said, but how do you figure out the process of, okay, I know I want more. I know I'm meant to be doing something else. How do you find clarity around what that is?
I mean, I think it's part of just doing things. And I know that sounds really simplistic, but for me, it started with like reading stuff and being like, I'm really interested in this. And I am like a voracious reader. I mean, y'all can see like this is like one of my 4 bookcases. I got all my books, right? Like I buy books like you think I have none. Like I'm always buying more books. And I say that because it just was like, I am really interested in this. And then it got to be I'm interested in it. Who's doing this work? Like, and what does it even look like? What classes can I take to see who's also doing this? And so I just would think of like seeing what is it you love to do, talk about, build, and then going the next step. And you have to really drill it down because what I tend to see is that people want to make money. So they'll be the kitchen sink, right? They'll do everything. If I'm a builder, I will build everything versus saying, no, I'm going to be the best door carpenter known to people, right? I'm going to be the best desk designer. And so people think that when you're the kitchen sink, you're going to get more work, and you're not. Like I'm very explicit when I talk to people. I say, Jen Fry Talks is a social justice firm that focuses on educating and empowering those within athletics through an anti-racist lens. I am very specific about my area. If you want to hire me for somewhere else, cool. But I tell you my area. And so many people think if you niche down that you're not going to get hired. In reality, it's the opposite because people are going to look at you as the expert. And I have literally a huge music company has contacted me. A Fortune 500 hair company has contacted me. Big companies, because I'm like, the stuff I do, I can use really phenomenal athletic analogies. My work is foundational, so it can go across any type of organization or industry, hair, music, higher ed, like whatever it is. But I also am like, this is where my area was. This is where it is. And I'm very specific about it. And I think that's the thing is I kept niching down to where am I going to talk and what am I going to talk about? People ask me, can you talk about LGBT? Yes, but I'm not part of that community. So I'm not taking their money. You're not going to use me and be like, oh, you can talk about everything. No, pay them, right? Can you talk about gender issues? Yes, but that's not my lane. And I know my lane very well. It's very defined and I stick in it. I'm not going to jump lanes to make money because that's when you get caught off guard because you're jumping into stuff that maybe you don't know as well. You don't know how to manage and you're not educated. And I see so many people, especially in DEI, who are like, go do this month trainer and you can be a DEI person. Yeah, you're fine talking. What happens when the shit hits the fan? What happens when you have someone Zoom bombing you and cussing and saying the N-word? What happens when you have people in the Zoom room arguing? What happens when you're in person and people are arguing? People are saying inappropriate things. Like, yes, you can be it, but when the shit hits the fan, are you prepared to handle it? And that's, I think, the thing is when you niche down, you give yourself that education to be able to handle so many different things within your field.
Like Joyce Johnson said, niche down. You know what, Jen? This is why I was so excited about having you on today because you're already on fire. This is where we need like smoke machines or something or like sparklers in the background. We need something.
I've always said that. Yeah.
We need some kind of button. We got to figure out at some publishing 30 days. We got to figure out how we can do that and get some smoke machines or something on stage because you're going in. I'm over here. My pen is on fire. I can't keep up with all the notes and all the things that I want to address. Let's just start with this and then we'll move over to a couple of things. You mentioned you showed your bookshelf, right? And you said that's just one bookshelf, one of many. I'm the same way. And this is leading to a point because I have multiple bookshelves around the house. I got a pile of books sitting over here on the floor in my office. I think back to what we were saying earlier, so many people, they want to carve out a lane for themselves or do more, but they don't invest that time in learning about themselves, learning about their industry, like you said, figuring out how you can niche down, become a market leader. And those are all things that are so important. But the same people who complain about their lives Monday through Friday, those same people this weekend are going to be out drinking. Mm-hmm. Those same people are going to be at home next weekend watching Netflix all weekend, not doing anything to invest in themselves. So I definitely appreciate you sharing that. And then your advice about niching down, staying in your lane is so strong because you can always branch out, but you want to become a market leader in your field, in your industry first before you got to establish that foothold before you branch out. So I appreciate you sharing that too. I want to get back to Joyce Johnson with the comment that I wrote down where she was talking about the foundation, right? So there it is right there. Joyce Johnson says, working in a corporate space, as she says, gives you a foundation to entrepreneurship that allows you to focus on your strengths and identify where you need support. So, and this was your case as well. I think that a lot of athletes don't look at it that. I know I wasn't for sure. Like you said, I was just coming out of college, trying to get a check, trying to get some money. No sort of vision or no sort of clarity about where I was going. In your work, let's just talk about this because I want to get more onto what you're doing now. In your career, what sort of things do you think athletic departments, and I know you stay in your lane, right? But I think you could give some solid advice on this. What do you think both athletic departments, coaches, even parents of athletes could be doing better to help athletes prepare for life after sports? But also, what do you think us as athletes can do better to prepare ourselves during our careers?
Yeah, I think that's all good stuff. I think I'll start from kind of the end and work my way up. You might have to remind me of the other one. So I think as for athletes, you got to hustle on your campus. Like every school I worked at, I'm meeting people. I am putting myself on committees. That's how I really got started in the DEI stuff. I saw that at Elon when I was there was an opening on the Black Experiences Committee. And I'm like, I want to be on that. And I saw someone left. So I literally emailed him. I was like, hey, I'd love to be on this committee. And I think many students don't hustle enough when they're on campus. Yeah, people know you, but people don't know you. And so it means going and friggin' emailing the vice president, the this, the that, saying, hey, can I meet with you? Having some questions. When I was leaving college coaching, I thought I wanted to work in student development. So I got a list of all the student athlete development folks in the CAA and called every single one and scheduled a meeting. And then said, who would you recommend I talk to next? And I just would call, literally just call people. And then I also, when I was looking at PhD programs, I saw that Berkeley had a master's in sport management or something. Not a PhD, but I'm like, I'm going to still call him. I call him. He's like, here's 5 people you need to talk to in athletics. And so many people are like, I don't want to do that. What's the worst I can do? Tell you no? Okay, they tell you no or don't respond to your email, you will still live, right? As a college coach, if you don't hear no 9 zillion times, you ain't really recruiting. And so you got to be okay with the no. Or Eduardo Bonilla Silva works at Duke, and I really wanted to talk to him. And I emailed him. He's like, hey, I'm going through, doing X, Y, and Z. Can you email me in 3 weeks? 3 weeks later, hey, can you meet? Month later, hey, can you meet? Until finally, like 4 months later, we met. And so I think that's the thing is, as a student athlete, you need to grind on your campus. And it might be that you're going and talking to people, that's not even what you're interested in, but they might be able to lead you to what you're interested in, right? You go and talk to this businesswoman and you're talking, she's like, oh, I don't know if I can help you, but I have a friend who does this, this, and this in this department. Why don't you email her? I'll connect y'all. And like, that's how it works. But you have to be willing to grind for that. Right? Of meeting people, talking with your professors. Like you got to grind out on that campus. And that's what I do, especially if you're, a coach or administrator, grind out on your campus. Everyone at Duke, I knew every single office I can send an athlete to. I can send someone to, every single athlete, because I got to know people so well. And then that helped once I left, people will be like, hey, I have a friend who's looking for a speaker. Let me connect you, because I got to know so many people. Even if you're introverted, cool. Have like your list of 5 questions you're going to ask, but you still got to grind. I think when it comes to administrators and coaches, you need to grind as well, because you open the doors for your athletes. Right? There is nothing better than me as a coach being like, oh, you want to learn, you want to talk to this person? Yeah, we always have lunch. Let me hit him up with the email. Like, not only does it help your career, but it helps your athletes seeing the connections. There's nothing better than being like, I'm sending you need to go see a therapist, and my friend Anita's a therapist. I'm emailing her so that she knows you're on the way. Right? Like, those are the things you need, the connection you need to make for your athletes, so that when they need help in some form, you've already made the connections yourself. So my goal when I go to campus is to meet everyone. I randomly contact people for lunch. Like, I remember seeing in the Duke newsletter, like there was like a Black tenured woman in the business school. Emailed, hey, do you want to meet for lunch? I love you wrote this book and that book, right? Like I take advantage of that, because the people you get to meet are just amazing folks. And so I would say that for coaches and administrators to do that, to meet everyone so that you can open doors for your athletes, especially hard doors of faculty that are really tough to know, the president, the vice, like get to know those people so you can open doors. I think for the parents need to start asking very nuanced questions for their athletes. I think a lot of times we see parents are so excited for the scholarship that they don't ask the right questions. No, you need to ask questions upon questions upon questions. I had this one transfer. Matter of fact, she was coming from Michigan State. Her mom, y'all know that meme from, I think it's Peele, where he's like sweating, Jordan Peele in the meme. That was me. She was like peppering me with questions. What's the transfer rate of Black athletes? How many Black students are here? What's the rate of Black faculty? Oh, homegirl had me in there like, I'm going to find out for you. I'm going to find out. But you know what? She made me realize that as a Black coach, I need to know this stuff. If somebody's asking me what's the rate of transfers of Black students on my team and in the department, I need to know. So all of that information coaches need to know, and parents need to be asking very intricate, nuanced questions. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can find it really quick. On my website, I actually have, I asked her to, give me 2 seconds. I made up like this document that is meant for like parents to ask questions. And it gives them a really good idea of what questions to ask, because as we know, many times they don't know what to ask. And so Jane sent it to me because here we go. Do you have a way that I can maybe like show my screen?
There should be a way where you can click on.
Oh, here we go. Share my screen.
You got it.
Okay, here we go. Okay, share it. Okay, blah, blah, blah. Let me see the window. Here we go. So I made this document, and this document literally, can I not move it?
We can see it.
Okay, but I don't think I can. Let me see if I can move it on here. Are you seeing it move?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So this is a document that literally it's for people to think about when they're doing recruiting and to be more nuanced with it. But at the bottom are these questions. right? You need to ask as a parent, who is doing the contacting? How are you going to contact my kids? Very specific stuff, right? This one right here, interest level. What, like literally kids and parents need to ask, what is your interest in me? Where am I at on your list of outsides, of running backs, of centers? When do you plan on making an offer? What is the timeline deadline? Where am I at on your depth chart? Right? Like all these things, academic considerations.
I need a copy of this, Jen. I'm about to send this to my cousins who are being recruited right now.
Okay.
I got to pass this over to my aunties and uncles. This is
okay. I got
this
you.
is huge.
But like all this stuff, right? Can athletes who leave to play pro without graduating come back and get financial and academic assistance? Can it student athletes who leave to play professionally without graduating? Let me see here. How many academic advisors are there? That's a really important question.
Right.
Like these
That's a major.
Right. These like, is it one academic advisor to 400 athletes? Right. How accessible is the advisor? Is study hall expected? Is my sport fully funded? You know, can I layer stuff? If you do a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year scholarship, when do I get my scholarship? What can I sign that will document and assure me of the scholarship I'm going to get in the future?
Wow.
You need to have, like, these are questions, right? And this is what we're seeing right now. Under what conditions can my scholarship be taken away? So here are ones about the competitive schedule. Plain. Coach, right here. How long has the coaching staff been at the institution? When is the head coach's contract up? That's it.
Talk about having people sweating bullets. You hit them with these questions, you might have somebody run out the office on you.
Listen.
They might resign from the position. You hit them with one of these.
Listen. How long is your contract up? When is it up? Why are your assistants leaving every year? Like, those are the questions that need to be asked. Because that's the stuff that they need to answer. If they're saying, oh, the head coach just got renewed and until 2026, cool. Versus it's up at the end of this year and the coach hasn't won the last 3 years. What we think is going to happen. And right. So I think that's the problem, is that parents don't know the right questions to ask. And because that they ask these very general questions, and then their kid gets there and it's not what they think, because you don't know until you know. And so the goal of that, and I'm going to send this to my manager to kind of go through with editing and stuff. You don't know until you know, right? Until you're in the situation. And that's so that's what I would say is also within that are questions asking about like stuff out of season. What can my kid do? What major? Like all those questions. And like I tell recruits is to take like 3 questions from each section, put it in like a Google Doc, interviews. It's a 2-way conversation. That's I want you as much as you want me, 100%. And parents, especially parents that are low socioeconomic status, forget that, right? They're like, we're poor, we can't afford it, this might be your only option. No, especially if it's going to traumatize your kid. If that's the issue, take them to a JUCO for 2 years. I went to a JUCO and I'm going to be finishing my PhD in May. Take them there, right? And so I think that's the thing is like, so we see so many parents, single moms who are like, this might be your only way out. No, you need to still ask the questions so that your kid is going somewhere where it's not harmful and violent.
That's right. Jen, I want to thank you for everything that you just shared, because this really hits home. And I know people watching this right now or watching the playback. I mean, this personally, I think about my family, if we would have been equipped with these questions going into it versus, like you said, we're just excited. My mom and dad were excited. Someone's going to pay for the school. I was excited. I was going to get to play college ball. But to go in there equipped, empowered with these resources that you're putting out there and working on, I can't thank you enough for the work that you do. We could easily be on here for several more hours. But like I said, I know you have things to get to. I know it's a Saturday. We will definitely be in touch for more. I want to do a solo episode so we can pick up where we left off on this, because there's a lot more ground to cover. And I appreciate you coming on here. Before we get out of here, can you please tell people how they can get access? I know you're working on those resources, but how can they learn more about Jen Fry Talks? How can they get in touch with you and follow everything you're up to these days?
Literally every single social media channel, YouTube, everything, just look at Jen Fry Talks. I try to make it really easy. Yes, I have like a Snapchat, but I'm not posting nothing. Don't expect to see me dancing on there. Same thing with TikTok. Like I got a TikTok account just to watch videos. I'm not finna be like dancing or doing anything. No, not today, not ever. So just like Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of that. Gen Fry Talks. My website, www.genfrytalks.com. So everything, follow me, chat with me, all that good stuff.
Beautiful. Well, this was a phenomenal conversation, Jen. This was more like a presentation than anything. This was a keynote speech. Thank you so much for your keynote. I'm definitely looking forward to working on more projects. I know there's something that we got under wraps right now. I sent you something we were talking about before I moved to Texas. So I'll be in touch about that soon. I hope you enjoy your weekend, and thank you so much. You brought so much value to the show today, and I can't express enough how grateful I am for you. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me on here, and I'll chat with you later, okay?
All right, Jen. Take care. My goodness, we might need to have an intermission. Just everybody go take a water break or something, or do some breathing exercises after that one, because Jen Fry messed around and set this show on fire, folks. Next up, we got my homegirl Tanika Ruben. Now, this is going to be a great conversation as well, so please stick around. Tanika Ruben is a professional overseas basketball player, speaker, and author of the book Winners Win. It's a phenomenal book, by the way. She's lived in 5 different countries where she's learned to appreciate the beauty of cultural differences. Tanika uses her experiences on and off the court to encourage and inspire the next generation. Yes, indeed. Please welcome to Athlete to Entrepreneur, Miss Tanika Ruben. What's going on, Tanika?
What's going? Should I flip my camera?
Try it out. Let's see. While you're doing that, we'll see how it looks. I think you look good, but let's see how it looks. I have to turn mine sideways sometimes, so that's better. Yeah, that's much better. Great idea. Yeah, you good. You good. You good. I'm doing great. How about you? Can you hear me?
Good. I'm excited to talk to you. Yeah. Do we have a lag?
It might be a little lag. It's okay. We'll work it out. It'll probably catch up in a second. I'm kicking myself right now because I was looking for your book this morning. I was telling everybody when I was introducing you what a phenomenal book Winners Win is, and I'm fortunate enough to have gotten a signed copy. Because I support the authors and order directly from the website. I don't go to Amazon. I order directly from the authors. Your book was phenomenal for many reasons. Yeah, you know how it goes. Your book was phenomenal not only because you told your story and talk about your experiences, but I think you hit on so many great points to help the next generation of athletes coming up behind you. And I was looking for it this morning. I just moved to Texas a couple months ago, so forgive me. It's around here somewhere on one of these shelves or probably in a box. I'm still moving in. But one of the first questions I wanted to ask you is, because I'm always fascinated by athletes who are building businesses while they're still playing. You're in the middle of your professional career. I know your season just wrapped up, but we've had a Mobia Kugo on here, a professional soccer player. Jory Davis, who I know you know from Weave Off Society. Athletes who are still playing. What is it like being a professional athlete overseas and having being an author and having a speaking business and all the other things you're up to?
Well, man. Well, first of all, thank you for that compliment about my book. I really appreciate that. But man, it's a journey. Just like anything else, it's a journey, and I'm just learning how to navigate it. And so you mentioned Jory. She was actually one of the people who was very inspirational to me, being an athlete, but being more than an athlete. And so when I met Jory, I started down that path of meeting other people who wanted to be more than an athlete. And so that was always in the back of my mind because I missed my senior year of high school playing basketball from my ACL. And so during that time, I realized I had other skills, I had other gifts and talents, and that I should also think more about my future because eventually the basketball is going to stop. And so I've always been kind of entrepreneurial. And so, yeah, it's been a journey. It's figuring out what marketing looks like. It's figuring out who I should get on my team. Like, you're building a great team around you. And so, yeah, it's a journey.
Quick side note, Tanika, you tore your ACL your senior year of high school, so you didn't even compete your senior year, and you still got a scholarship. You must have been balling.
Man, yeah, it was coming up to my senior year, so it was like my the summer after junior year, We were like doing a summer league, tore my ACL, and I missed the whole year except for the playoffs. So I came back to the playoffs, I wasn't really 100%, but I went JUCO just like Coach said before. What's her name? She was killing it.
Jen Fry.
You go JUCO, and at first that was something I really looked down on. Like a lot of athletes, you look down on it, like, man, I can do better. But I learned that it was the best thing for me. And tearing my ACL really opened my eyes up to possibilities, not just on the court, because I became a better player, but also, off the court, like I said.
Mm-hmm. And then what was your decision to actually write the book? Because a lot of people, we always talk about this at Self-Publish in 30 Days. A lot of people talk about what they're going to do. Oh, I'm working on a book. Stay tuned, it's coming out, but it's sitting on their laptop. They've been working on it for 7 years, and it's still sitting on Google Docs. What was your, first of all, what made you want to write a book? And then what was the process like of you following through with it and actually putting it out there to the world so it could have an impact on people?
Man, that's a really good question. For me, it was like this burden, and that's the only way I'll describe it. So I believe in God, and I believe that He kind of prompts us to do things. And so that was, for me, it was like I came back home from my first year from Portugal playing as a pro, and I just had this really heavy burden to write. I always been journaling, and I'll write things in my phone or like little nuggets of wisdom that I think about. But when I came home, it was like, you got to write a book because there's so much that you have that can help other people. And so I knew from that time that I came home to my next thing I had to do was work a youth camp, and I only had like a month and a week at home. And I knew that if I didn't write it in that month and that week, then I probably wouldn't get it done. And like I said, it was like a really heavy burden. So I just sat down and I just poured out. It was like a brainstorm of everything that I had been kind of compiling in my mind and things that I had been writing. And I got the brainstorm down, and I said, I'm going to finish this book in like this 5 to 6 week period. And I did. And it was just discipline. Like every day I wrote, even though everything that I wrote didn't get in the book. But I would Google a lot. How do you finish a book? Just going to the source that did it. How do you complete it? Like, what does that look like? And so I sought out wisdom from other sources, but I just made sure that I did the discipline of actually writing.
Right. Yeah. A couple things there that you touched on that I really like, Tanika. First of all, you said like 5 to 6 weeks is how long it took you to actually complete the book, at least to complete the manuscript, right? And I always tell people, like, it took me about 10 weeks to have a manuscript ready to go, at least a rough draft. But so when people get overwhelmed with this idea of like, oh, it's so hard to write a book and it takes people years and years to write a book, it really doesn't have to if A, you have the right guidance, and B, if you're really serious about getting this thing out and not finding excuses not to get it done, right? So props to you, number one, for getting a guidance and understanding what actually goes into a book so you can get it done the right way, but also for following through and making it happen because your message is important. Like I said, I read the book last year and I loved it. So props to you for following through with that because I know it's helping a lot of people and will continue to do so.
I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. Now, I wanted to touch on this because we're going to get deep. We're going to get spiritual on you for a second. For the listeners, when I was reading your book last year, one of the things I liked the most, and I was going through an interesting time in my life too, where no matter what you believe in, no matter what your religious beliefs are, I'm sure everyone listening can agree there's something higher above all of us that governs all of us, right? And so in your book, you talked about how you were, I won't get too personal. You got to read the book if you want to get all this information, but you were talking about how you had certain behaviors or certain like attitude adjustments that need to be made, right? As a young adult, as we all do, as in your late teens, early 20s, certain things that you were working on, and you notice every time you would act one way, God or the universe would like just smack you down and be like, you got to cut it out. You're not acting right. And he would like throw things at you to kind of throw you off course. And every time you were acting the right way, which to be right, and acting righteously or whatever, being in a place where you were operating at the highest version, the best version of Tanika, good things started happening. So I wanted to ask you today, can you just go a little bit into that? Like, you don't have to share any of the personal stuff you shared in the book, but just some of the things that you noticed. And because I think it would be good for certain people to hear, because I know it was beneficial for me. It would be good for people to hear what that was like for you and what you noticed in your life when you stay on the right path and operate at your highest self. Good things start to open up for you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, man, that's really good. So all of this kind of boils down to this saying that I say a lot, and it's like God hid something special inside of each of us that He wants to get into the world, right? And so we're not just here by happenstance. We're not just like a coincidence. I feel like everyone has a purpose. Like you said, regardless of what you believe in, you know that there is like this divine being, right? And so for me, it was like I had, like you said, I had behaviors. I was a mess, really. I was behind. You made it look, you made it sound good, but it was like I was one of those problem kids. You know, I was really hard to deal with. But at the end of the day, I was created with a purpose, and so I just had to get on the right path. And so I noticed there were like people who were placed in my path who would help me and who would see potential in me when I didn't see it in myself. And so I'm really thankful for those people in those instances, and like even times where things looked bad or looked like I was gonna fail, but there was like this divine guidance that pushed me the other way. It helped me to learn so many different lessons that I needed to learn. And I realized that in order for me to live out this purpose, that I eventually realized, what I was here to do, then I'm gonna have to change some things. And then it started with me making a decision that I have to become a better version of myself. And after that decision, you have ups and downs still, but you you're determined to live out your purpose.
Mm, that's a beautiful thing. Thank you for sharing that, Tanika. Now, something else I wanted to ask you about was because you and I connected on IG. I think we had seen each other's videos. We were putting out content. I love your videos, by the way. You don't just show up with some generic message. Like you're speaking from the heart, dropping quality, dropping gems. Um, I wanted to ask you, what was it like? Like, did you know before you published your book that you were going to become a speaker, or was it just something that happened, afterwards? What was that process like?
All of that kind of happened like all in the same little time. It was like I had this burden to write, right? And I knew that I communicated better in writing. That's the way I felt about myself. But I also knew that I could speak and that connecting with the audience would be a little bit better, easier, more accessible through video and through speaking because a lot of people just don't read. And so I was like, okay, I have to start speaking. And I had such an insecurity around speaking. I had such this fear, like I do not want to go on camera. I don't want to speak. I don't want to hear myself speak because growing up, I had like there were kids who like picked on me because of my voice. I had like this high squeaky voice, and I think I still have it. I don't know, but anyways, it doesn't matter anymore because I realized I realized that this is what I'm called to do, and I have a message that I have to get out. And so what I realized I had to tell myself was it's not about me. And so I repeated that. I would practice speaking in front of my phone, look at it, be like, I don't like that, delete it, and then do it over again until I realized, okay, I just got to put it out, like regardless.
So you were getting those reps in, just like in basketball, just like any sport. You started getting reps in to make yourself better.
That's me.
There it is. There it is. Thank you for sharing it. I think people need to hear that because I mean that's why we're here, right? This panel is called Athlete to Entrepreneur. This is about athletes who, and like Jen was talking about and Joyce was commenting on that. You have to use sometimes just a job, not only to pay your bills, but to get experience and use that as a foundation to branch off and do other things. So just like when you're playing your sport, you have to continue to get those reps in at anything you do. You can't expect to get better at anything, whether it's your fitness, just speaking, like you said, anything you do takes practice, takes work. And the more reps you put in, like they always say, your 10,000 hours, the more reps you put in, the better at it you're going to be. So, uh, I'm sorry. We're trying to work with this delay. We making it happen though. I wanted to ask you this too. Now, this is exciting to me because I look at the work that you're doing and how you're having an impact on the community right now. Like I said, you're still in the middle of your career. So, what do you see happening? And I'm not trying to, I'm not jinxing nothing. You probably got another 10 years on the court. But when you're done playing, what do you see yourself doing? Like obviously stepping into more speaking and writing more books, but like what do you envision your life after basketball being like?
um, this is you have really good questions, but um, what a lot of people don't know about me is that I love youth, and so we talked about purpose a little earlier. I feel like a big part of my purpose is to impact youth and young people because of how I was brought up. And I had so many mentors around me who kind of helped me to be where I am right now. And so I do that. I work with youth in the summer, like I go to camps and speak with them and everything. But I think after basketball, I'll really dive more into that. And I want to have a nonprofit. I haven't painted it out yet. I won't go into details too much, but just a nonprofit that can help underserved, underprivileged youth. I have a heart for child hunger, and like I said, I'm very entrepreneurial, so I have these other ideas and things. But for the most part, a lot of what I'll be doing is working with the youth. That's what I have a heart for.
Mm, that's a beautiful thing. You touched on something I wanted to double back to, where you talked about mentors, how you have a lot of great people in your life that have mentored you and brought you up, and that kind of makes you want to pay it forward and mentor, other young athletes and just young adults. So for anybody listening, can you talk about why it's important to not only have mentors, but seek out mentors and find people who can bring you up in whatever area you're looking for, guidance in? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So as an athlete, as an entrepreneur, whatever it is that you do, we have these blind spots, and we have these things that we don't know that we don't know. And so when you have people around you who have walked your path, who know what it is that you're trying to accomplish, and they've been there before, they can help guide you in a way that you can't do on your own, and you can't even do it with your peers. So like you have your peers and people who are right next to you, and they can help you in a certain way. But when you have a mentor, it takes you to. There's a quote I heard a few years ago. It said a mentor is an invitation to the next level. So when you have a mentor, when you have like the access to that person, that it's literally all you have to do is follow the blueprint. Hey, that's the blueprint, that's the plug. But you have to follow the blueprint and
There
you're
you
there,
go.
And so mentors are extremely important in whatever it is you do.
I love that. A mentor is an invitation to the next level. I really like that. And I like how you pointed out that a mentor helps you with blind spots, things that you don't know, you don't know. I always tell people, like, if it's not on your radar and you don't even know that you need help or improvement in that area, how can you do something about it? Like you said, that's what a blind spot is. That's the whole point of having a mentor. I think about myself. I think I've always been someone. Okay, I can't say always. Let me take this back. I think since probably the age of like 25, 26, like the past 5 years, I'll just say, I've been someone who has been really focused on self improvement and studying people, like from a distance, like looking up to certain people, watching their interviews, reading their books. But I think one thing I was lacking until recently, really until last year, when I connected with Darren Palmer, and shout out to Darren. I know he's watching right now, so I got to give Darren some love. I think having an actual mentor who I have conversations with every day was something I was missing. It's one thing to study people. It's another thing to have a conversation or have someone holding you accountable. Because, once I connected with Darren, my life was just pew, you know what I mean? Like straight to the next level. Because like you said, there's no substitute for, I wrote that down, but I got to write that down again. A mentor is an invitation to the next level. That's fire right there. There might be a book or something in there. We might have to, we'll talk later. We'll talk later about that. Another thing I want to ask you, Tanika, is just from a time management perspective, because like I said, I know your season just wrapped up, so obviously you have kind of like a window to be able to create and work on different things. But I'm looking at you because we've been having dialogue for, since we connected, but there's been a couple of times where like you were in the middle of the season. So we might have been talking about working on a project or something, but you're like, hey, I'm mid-season right now. But yet you're still putting out content. I see you on different flyers and things like that. So just from a time management side, how have you been able to, or what kind of things can you share that's been beneficial for you as a professional athlete to carve out time to still work on your business, build your business, and do the things that you need to do?
That's really good. It all boils down to the discipline. And so as an athlete, especially as a college athlete, you're used to people saying, okay, at this time you're gonna do this, after that you have to do this, and when you go to the next level, you don't have that anymore. And then furthermore, when you have your own endeavors, your own ventures as an entrepreneur, you have to do that on your own. And so I just tried to take, and since I'm still an athlete, I'm still in that mode. And so I just try to keep the structure, as much structure as I can, especially in my mornings. For me, mornings are really powerful, a powerful way for me to set the tone for my day. And so I try to get up early. as early as I can. Overseas, it was really a weird schedule, but just try to have a structure. Like I get up, I read, I pray, I drink tea. Like I have a certain thing that I like to do, and it helps me to be more productive. I notice that when I don't do those things, then I'm kind of like, I'm out of it. I'm a little lazy. I'm like, okay, this is my off day. I'm relaxed, and so I try to just set the tone early and stay structured. That's the way for me, especially during season, to put out content. And I'm really like, it doesn't look this way, but during the seasons, I'm trying to get better at it. But it's kind of sloppy, like it looks like I'm putting out. But I have my sister. She really holds me accountable. She's also an entrepreneur, but she will like text, call me, and be like, "Tanika, you're slacking. I need you to like do a little bit more. I know you have this going on, but we have to get it done." And so we have a business together, a clothing line, and so it's like you have to also have people around you who can hold you accountable. It's important.
Wow. Joyce Johnson says you must believe in something greater than yourself to be self-driven. To be self-driven can be destructive. Wow. Whoa. Okay. Thank you for that, Joyce. That's a huge one right there, and that's actually perfect to what we're talking about here, Tanika, because like you just mentioned earlier, you have a broader vision. It's not just about you, writing books and trying to sell thousands of copies of the book and becoming a bestseller, or you getting paid to go speak places. You said that a part of what you do with your busy schedule is focused on pouring into other people. And that's huge. So thank you for sharing that, Joyce, because I think you're a prime example of that, Tanika. Just the way you're constantly giving back. It's not just all about you. You're constantly looking for ways. You don't have to put out content, and I know you said you got your sister holding you accountable, which is great. Obviously she does that. But I think that's a great point that Joyce brings up. So thank you for sharing that, Joyce. Now, Tanika, we got to talk about this because I feel like where you're at in your life, you're just getting started. I love to tell people that. And I feel that way about myself. Like there's some great things going on, but I'm just getting started. So it makes me excited for the future. Um, with everything, how do you think that people can go about, because this will be good for athletes transitioning. I know you're in the middle of your career, but how do you think people can go about crafting a vision for themselves? We know it has to be about other people, like Joyce said, but what is something that has helped you with, even when you talk about the nonprofit and everything, like how did you come to that conclusion? How do you craft a vision for what you want your life to look like moving forward?
That's a good question. That's another good question. For me, I've always been like this dreamer, and I know everyone's not a dreamer, everyone's not a visionary, so this can be challenging for some people. But the way I was as a kid, I would just say these things that I wanted to do, and I think it helped because I had people around me who enabled that, like they empowered me to dream. They didn't shut it down. But I know that's not the case for everybody, and so how to craft a vision for yourself, man, like first I think it's important to be in a good environment of people. Like if you have people around you or friends or who are a little bit negative, it's gonna be hard for you to try to craft a vision. There's always gonna be, some negative criticism around what you can't do, what's too hard. And so first you really gotta like place yourself in a good environment so that you can be free to dream. And then, just get rid of fear. Fear is like a huge thing that stops people from even starting to dream, where they're like, man, like in the back of my mind, I think I want to, or I think I can, but there's so many insecurities, like I told you about earlier, about how I had the insecurity of not being able to speak well, and how that could have stopped this whole operation. Like you would have never heard of me, but understanding fear is literally that thing that is just supposed to stop your purpose. And if you can get past that, get around that, and get through it, then you can dream. You can craft a vision for your future.
Mm, strong advice right there. Again, I like how you touched on fear. I think sometimes I've had conversations because I've done some work with a lot of transitioning athletes over the years, and I've had conversations with them. It's not just fear of failure, but it's also fear of success. Like, what happens if I do start making all this money, or what happens if I do reach the top? Am I going to be able to handle it? Am I going to lose it when I get there? So I'm glad that both fear of failure or fear of success hasn't stopped you from doing what you need to do. Otherwise, like you said, people would have never heard of you, but you pushed through it anyway. And that's wonderful. Something else that I wrote down where you were sharing is how you said dreaming. Just like I think you said when you were a kid, you would just always dream and have these grand visions. And I think that sometimes adults kind of lose that, the ability to just, like, I dream every day and think about what my life could be, especially if I continue to do the things I'm doing. And that excites me. And sometimes people get caught up in, just a mundane lifestyle. And then they forget to dream and realize that we're here creating our life. We're here today creating something that's going to help people, So I'm sorry, were you saying something? It looked like, I know there's a delay, but were you about to say something?
I wasn't. No.
Oh, okay. I wanted to ask you this too. I want to be respectful of your time. Are you still overseas or are you back home right now?
I'm back. I'm in Florida. I'm in Florida right now.
Oh, okay. I don't know why I was thinking you were. When do you actually go back overseas? Because this kind of, it leads to my next question. But
I go back overseas probably around September, but I'm getting ready to leave until August to work some youth camps, and so I'll leave to go to Baylor June 9th, and then after that I'm going to a camp in Pennsylvania June 19th until August 15th.
nice. Look at you, Tanika. Always finding ways to give back. Going to the youth camps on your time off, your free time. Man, check you out. That's great. That's great. I wanna close it out with this. There are a lot of people who tune in to Athletes Entrepreneur, and it's not just athletes; it's parents of athletes, right? It's people who aren't athletes at all. They're just aspiring entrepreneurs, and they want to get some wisdom. But what advice can you? Let's stick with athletes, because I know a lot of seasons ended, and a lot of athletes just graduated from college, a couple weeks ago or coming up. So what advice can you give to an athlete who is transitioning out? And I know you're still in your career, but what advice can you give to an athlete who is transitioning out of their sport and really entering a stage where they're starting the rest of their lives? They're entering this new chapter for the rest of their lives. What advice can you give to them about how to approach this new time as no longer being an athlete? And, what advice can you give on that piece?
I would say this is something that I think about a lot because I'm surrounded by so many people like yourself who talk about the transition out of your sport. Um, I would say be graceful with yourself. Be graceful because as an athlete, I know we're all competitive and we're like hard on ourselves. And a lot of times, if we started playing our sport from a young age, then that's a part of our identity. And if we're not aware, that can be our whole identity if we don't know any better. If we don't really know who we are, our sport can be who we are. And so transitioning out can be really tough. I've seen it happen for a lot of people where it's just like, I don't know what to do next, and now I'm very hard on myself, and I feel like a failure, and I feel like there's no direction there. And so I would say be graceful and just give yourself the grace and space to learn who you are and to figure things out because it's brand new. It's a new step, you know. And like you said, I'm not there yet, but I think about it often. And even now, I'm starting to shift how I view myself as an athlete. And so I'm not just an athlete. I'm also a person. I'm a human. And I have feelings. I have emotions. I have a different purpose. I have so many different pieces than just dribbling and shooting a basketball. And so, yeah, be graceful with yourself.
Mm. I love that. Yeah, I think that that's something that's not talked about enough, because even I can have a tendency when I'm talking to athletes to be like, listen, this is what you got to do. This is how you want to figure it out. But you do have to have that grace period where you can heal, and kind of adjust to life is no longer being mapped out or revolving around your sport. So I love that you shared that piece on being graceful with yourself, because that's the first step. You can't really start to build that new chapter unless you've healed the previous chapter and had grace with yourself during that time. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. And I like your shirt.
Thank you. Yeah, hard work. This is my boy, fully, AK Anthony King. He's out of California. I grew up, played high school football with this guy. His brand is called Fully Functional. So you can check that out on IG. He's a good dude. Fully Functional Clothing. He makes a lot of active wear. He always has cool stuff on the shirts. So quick shout out to AK right there. But Tanika, thank you again. Thank you so much for coming on. This has been a phenomenal conversation. Before we get out of here, please, please, please tell people how they can get in touch with you, how they can follow you on social media, where they can get the book, all of that.
Man, well, thank you. I really appreciate. This was cool. This was cool, laid back. I like the conversation. But you can get in touch with me I'm mostly on Instagram at Tanika Ruben. no spaces, no underscores. And I'm also, you can find all of my podcasts that I'm on and speaking and all those good things in my book on at TanikaRuben.com. TanikaRuben.com/book is where you can purchase my book. And I have it here. Winners win. Come on.
There it
Let's
is. There you
go.
go.
Right. So yeah, that's my first book.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Like I said, I got a copy. I just couldn't find it today for whatever reason. I was so mad trying to get on here, but I read the book. It's a phenomenal book, folks. For what it's worth, I put my stamp on it. As you can hear, as you heard today, Tanika has a huge heart and is bringing a lot of value and helping a lot of people. So definitely go support what she's doing. Make sure you follow her. Check out the book. Grab you a copy of Winners Win. Buy it from the website. Get you a signed copy. And make sure you show Tanika some love. Tanika, thank you again so much. I hope you have a great weekend. Safe travels to you when you go into those youth camps, and we will be in touch very soon, as always.
Guys, appreciate it. Bye.
Bye-bye. All right, folks. Tanika Ruben, how about it? How about it? The great part about it, like Tanika said, just casual conversation. That's what we do here on Athletes Entrepreneur. We keep it nice and casual, we just have making sure that people are being themselves and coming on here and sharing and letting you know if these people are doing all these great things in the world, then you can do it too. And speaking of people doing great things in the world, we got my man Rennie coming up next. I'm gonna give him a quick introduction and then we'll bring him on. Rennie Curran is a former professional athlete, keynote speaker, author, and the CEO of Game Changer Coaching. He delivers powerful keynote presentations, workshops, and one-on-one coaching covering topics such as leadership, teamwork, and overcoming adversity. His clients include Chick-fil-A, Coca-Cola, SunTrust, and the University of Georgia, and many, many more. You might have heard of some of those companies. I don't know. Maybe you've been living under a rock. I'm not sure. Whether you're a student, an athlete, a business professional, Rennie's mission is to help you reach your fullest potential. Please welcome to Athletes Entrepreneur, Mr. Rennie Curran.
Hey, what's going on, bro?
What's up, Rennie? I see y'all, man. You must be getting a workout in.
Nah, man. I'm actually, I know this is about entrepreneurship, and I'm out here supporting my sister, man. She has a little jewelry line and accessory line for women, and so I'm out here in Atlanta, man, in the downtown area, just supporting her. And she got the table set up and all those things, man. So
That's
yeah,
what's up.
loving it. Yes,
Yeah, man,
sir.
that's a beautiful thing. Hey, well, I appreciate you taking some time out of your day to come on here and share with us, man. Especially out there supporting
Yeah,
your sister with the business. That's a beautiful
yes,
thing,
sir.
man.
Yes,
Um,
sir. Yes, sir.
Before we get rolling, I got to give a shout out to Thomas Williams, who for introducing Rennie and I. We've had a lot of great conversations since then. And I was actually on a panel shortly after the introduction. Rennie and I, for anyone listening, Rennie and I had a great conversation, and then we jumped on a panel together that Thomas was hosting. And then Rennie shared some stuff that I was really excited about, and I wanted to bring that to you all today. Number one, Rennie, let's just start out with this. You talked about on that panel that your whole career, people doubted you, whether it's your size or whatever the case may be, people were doubting you. And I love how you were able to take that mindset, not only to become a beast on the football field, both in college at the University of Georgia, but professionally as well. And then carrying that into everything you do business wise. So let's just start out with that. Can you talk a little bit about how that mentality of people doubting you has carried you through and how you were able to turn that into fuel for your success?
Oh yeah, man. That's huge, and I feel like no matter where you are in life, like you have to be able to turn your challenges and adversity into your advantage, right? You have to be able to use it in a way that is healthy, in a way that is productive, in a way that ultimately leads you towards success. Because no matter where you are in life, no matter what you're trying to do, you're gonna face some type of opposition, and the opposition can be your own voice, that own, ego is what I call it. That little voice in the back of your mind that's like, man, don't post this, right? Don't take this risk. Don't talk to that person. Like they're not gonna like you. Like sometimes that can be your biggest enemy. So it's like, do you have that ability to, take that voice or that person that's doubting you or whatever it is and flip that thing on its head and make it something that fuels you? And that started with, for me, being on the field as a guy who heard a million times every single short joke, every single doubt that you could put out there about somebody, whether it was, I wasn't fast enough, I wasn't strong enough, I couldn't learn the playbook, and it really just made me go even harder. And it was really the fact that I had no choice, number one. And a lot of things can happen when your back is against the wall. That's when you really learn who you truly are. But for me, I thought about the fact that like my family, right? My family was working extremely hard at that time, man. My mom was paying all the bills. My dad had lost his business. Like I was just in that place of desperation, whereas like I had no other choice but to go hard and not let those things stop me. And once I started, to use those negative points to my advantage, man, it just built this momentum, and it built like a certain standard and a certain expectation that I had for myself, right? That allowed me to surpass whatever I face. And I feel like a lot of people, they allow their circumstances, what people say about them and whatnot, to set the standard for how they operate. But in those moments, I set the standard for myself. And it's the same thing in entrepreneurship. Like you can allow what's going on in the market, you can allow what's going on Instagram, all the other people who are trying to do what you do, you can allow that to dictate how hard you go and your mentality. Or you can say, regardless of what's going on over here, this is the standard that I'm going to set for myself. This is how hard I'm going to go. I'm going to post at this time regardless of who else is posting. I'm going to put this vision down and create this idea and put this product out regardless of whoever else has it, right? So it's really about that mentality, man, and the consistency that you align with that mentality and with that vision.
Man, that's huge, Rennie. See, we already starting off on the right foot, man. You already bringing the heat. I just introduced you, man. My goodness.
Yeah, I could have kept going on and on, but yeah, man, that's really what it's about.
That's right. That's right. I love how you talked about setting the standard. You set the standard for
Yeah.
yourself, which is huge. And I know you
Hmm.
mentioned, there were some things going on with the family at the time where you feel like you didn't have a choice. But there are so many people who are in similar circumstances, but they don't have the mindset that you had during that time. They don't take accountability for that time, right? And I think that
Hmm.
that's really a testament to who you are as a man and to your character to be like, okay, all this is going on around me. I'm gonna put it on my shoulders and make sure that I'm doing what I need to do to be able to take care of my family. So I just wanted to give you some props and acknowledgement for that, because a lot of people wouldn't have done what you did, man. You know,
Appreciate it, man.
yes, sir. And then I have to ask, while you were in college, did you ever envision the like? I know the goal, of course, was to make it to the league, but at what
Hmm.
point did you realize you wanted to become an entrepreneur and start doing some of the things you're doing now? When did that vision start to become clear for you?
Man, when she came, that's my daughter. That's my daughter. She's 12 years old now, man. And I became a father my sophomore year in college, bro. And that's when it really got real. Like I would always, and I tell people this, like God will uh, give you certain clues as to what eventually you're gonna do, even if it doesn't make sense at the time that you're, experiencing those clues, right? So for me, those clues were at 10, 11 years old. I would get my dad's lawnmower and just go around the neighborhood and just knock on folks' doors and mow lawns and generate that cash, and then getting my first job and having a bad experience. Being in the corporate world, it was like I was working in the warehouse and I had a supervisor who was a micromanager and I could not stand it. And that was another clue that this world was not for me. Like I'm an entrepreneur. I was always stubborn. Like I didn't like taking direction for people who I felt like I could do this. Like if I felt like I could do the same thing they were doing, like I didn't take it lightly. In terms of having to be controlled. All the time. And so little things like that, man, drove me to entrepreneurship. And then, like I said, when my daughter came, that's when it really got real. And I immediately at University of Georgia, I snapped into entrepreneurship mode. I was like, how can I take my platform? How can I take, basically the name that I built, now that I've become kind of a household name at University of Georgia by making plays and actually generate revenue. And so I joined, which is, a lot of people, um, may frown upon it, but I did it at the time because I was looking for opportunity. But I joined a multi-level marketing company, and it was like one of those where it's like you get people to switch their utilities, and then you make a residual income. And so I was like, okay, cool. It's already a pre-made system, pre-made model. All I have to do is attach my name to it and promote it, and I connect people, and I get a residual income off of it. So started that, man, created the Facebook page, launched it and everything, and then about 2 hours later, I got a call from compliance, NCAA. It shut me down quick. And yeah, that was my first time I learned what likeness and image and all that stuff was, right? At eight, like, yeah, 19, 20 years old, man. And yeah, from there though, it sparked something in me, just starting to understand the business side of things, and really becoming aware of my surroundings in terms of the sports, the business of sports, to really start to become aware of, just number one, the people who I had around me, like in terms of the network. When you go to a University of Georgia or Florida, you got donors, you got business owners, all these different people around you, right? And it's like I started asking questions. I was like, man, so what do you do? Why are you here? Why are you on the sidelines? What is this person on the third floor of our building like? What do they do on the sales team? What do they do sports marketing wise? How are these sponsorships created? These sponsorship opportunities. So just really getting curious, man. That's how things really started for me. But it was definitely a process when it came to just going from athlete to entrepreneur. And started with her, and then after I got cut, after my second year in the NFL, that's when things really, really got serious once again. Because at that point, I was like, man, I may never hear a call again. I may never get back on the field. So I did what I believe everybody should do. I did a self inventory. And what that means is I sat down and I wrote down all the transferable skills, all the things that I had within myself through all my experiences, through my knowledge that could provide value in the marketplace, right? Without me having to do anything, without me having to make any type of investment. And that's what entrepreneurship really started for me.
Mm. Man, really, it only took them 2 hours to shut down that multi-level marketing promo
Boy,
page, huh?
boy, it was crazy. They weren't having it, man.
Man, they were on it quick. I
Yeah.
wanted to talk about something that you brought up, man, because you talked about how when you were a kid, it made me think of something. When you were a kid and you were mowing lawns, right?
Hmm.
And I think sometimes the conversation gets brought up of, especially in a time like, that we're living in now where entrepreneurship is kind of like trendy and cool. Everybody wants to say they're entrepreneur, but not everybody wants to do the work that it takes to actually build yourself up and go through those hard times. But
Hmm.
when you talked about you mowing lawns as a kid, it made me think that there's often a conversation of, is entrepreneurship something you're just born with? Are you born with that kind of spirit? Or is it something that can be developed? And it kind of sounds like it was a little bit of
Hmm.
both, because you were entrepreneurial as a kid, but then you got into the corporate world. So I was more something that had to be developed, because just like you, I got into the corporate world and I was like,
Hmm.
this ain't going to cut it. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to have to find some kind of way to get out of this, because this is not going to work. So I
Right.
love that you brought that up. And then you talked about doing a self inventory, really, really tapping in. So how did you find clarity? Because once you were able to tap
Hmm.
into that and figure out, okay, this corporate stuff ain't gonna work. I have to carve out my own lane. Then the question I have for you is, how did you know what that lane was gonna look like? How did you start to develop clarity around that?
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's great. And I think as an entrepreneur, like, it's not only about you understanding like the skills and the product that you're trying to bring, but also, who needs this, right? Who is your target audience? Who are those people that are, in that place of need when you think about your product or your skill set or that thing that you can bring to the marketplace? Because as an entrepreneur, you got to realize it's not about you. And the worst mistake you can make is just to think, man, I'm gonna just throw up this business. Oh, I got this great idea. It's got to work because it's a great idea because it's coming from me. Like, nah, it's get out of your your head, get out of your own way. It's not about you. It's all about that other person. And a big part of it is empathy. When you think about entrepreneurship, think about like if it's a book, if it's a product that you're trying to create, if it's a service, right? Who is that person, right? And think about. I always try to paint the picture of your target audience as uh, making you think about like a video game, right? Those characters that you choose. So if you were to choose a character, create your perfect character that will use your product or service or hear your message or read your book, what do they look like? What do they think like? What keeps them up at night, right? What are those major challenges that they're facing? The closer you can get to identifying those things and understanding the psychology of your audience and that person that you're trying to reach or that person you're trying to sell to, the more successful that you'll be. And so for me, it wasn't just about like breaking down my skill sets. Like when I decided to write my first book, Free Agent, I literally thought about, okay, I have this great, amazing story. I've gotten to this point now. I've overcome many challenges, but now I face one of the toughest challenges in my life. I've gotten cut. I'm back home. I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know my identity. Like I don't know how I'm gonna move forward. I want to stay motivated, but I don't really know how. So this is what my book, I decided my book was going to be about. Not only achieving wealth, but helping others achieve wealth. Who else is in this same position in life, right? So I thought about people like my dad who lost his business, right? And who, after 10, 15 years of working hard, they're now in a place of being in a place of uncertainty and in no man's land. I thought about people who, they graduate from college, they get the degree, everybody's happy, then all of a sudden, a month, 2 months later, they're at their parents' house and they can't get that job. So they're in the place of a no man's land. Thought about other athletes who get cut. I thought about people who go through divorce or lose somebody and now they're just like confused with life. They don't know what to do. People who go through retirement. So those were all my avatars, what I call it. Those people who I could reach by creating this product. So once you identify those skill sets, once again, it goes back to who is your audience? Who is the people who you, through your story, through your experiences, that you, will most resonate with that product or service or message that you're trying to put out there.
So good, Rennie. Once again, man, we're having a master class on here on this edition of Athlete to Entrepreneur, man. I love that you touched on that, creating your avatar, because like you said, so many people go into business just thinking, I have a great idea. I have the next multi-million dollar app. I'm going to put this out to the market. It's all about the person putting it out versus who the product or the service is actually going to reach. So I love that you touched on creating your avatar, because I think a lot of people need to hear that. Focus on how this benefits the end user, and then that's going to
Yep,
take care of you if it's benefiting other people, like you said.
exactly.
I want to double back to something you said earlier. I don't want to skip past this. When you talked about, when the NCAA was hating on you and they shut down the page,
Hmm.
you didn't just roll over and just like give up on it. You still realized that you had a platform at the time, which is crazy because you're talking about, you said, 12 years ago or over 12 years ago at this point. When I think
Right.
now that's in the conversation heavy, like, right, leverage your
Hmm.
platform, leverage this time. But nobody was talking about that back then, 12
Right.
years ago. But yeah, you had the awareness not only to be like, okay, I'm going to use this for the multi-level marketing thing, but then when that didn't work out, you still were like, okay, I still have influence, I still have a platform. So I love that you use that to connect with people on campus, like the donors and different people in different departments. Can you just take a deeper dive into that? Like, what was your thought process like, and how did you, amongst everything else that was going on, practice and games and travel, how did you set aside time to be like, okay, I'm gonna make sure I'm getting in front of people, shaking hands, connecting with people? Can you just take a deeper dive into that and how you went about doing it?
Yeah, I mean, it really started with just even before then, and this is in goes back to high school, right? I was one of those guys where I did not want to be seen as just an athlete. Like I was actually offended by it. Like when people would just look at me and expect me to be the dumb jock and expect me to be the funny guy in class. Like I took offense to it, and so I would join honors classes. I was one of the few athletes who's actually in orchestra. So I just took pride in doing things that people didn't expect. And so that kind of transferred over into college, man. When I got there, just having that sense of awareness and just knowing like I'm not just here for football, regardless of if it works out or not. Like I'm gonna try to do something to set myself apart. So that meant not just taking a class because it was the easy route, right? I made sure that I thought to myself, man, if I'm gonna get this degree, I'm gonna make sure I get my money's worth, right? Like when around that same time that they shut me down when I tried to start my business, one of the biggest things that gave me awareness was the fact that like they were selling my jerseys. Like my jerseys were being sold at Dick's Sporting Goods, Walmart, all that. So, and I'm a business major or trying to get into business school. So I'm like, man, what? Who's getting all this money? So that little question sparked that curiosity where I wanted to learn about the whole system that I was in. And like I said before, they would have us go to events, galas and uh, uh, um, nonprofit events, and we'd be on the sidelines with different people, random people, usually older white dudes, right? Who you know what they did, but they're there, and eventually I started asking questions, just becoming curious, right? I was just like, man, what did this person do? How does these dots connect, right? And the more I asked questions, the more I had those meetings, the more I became aware of just my environment. Just you start to acquire that knowledge, no different than the game. It is no different than me playing linebacker, right? Just and studying the film before a game, right? I took that same type approach. And the more I did that, it built and it built and it built, and eventually I started building that network. That was like my first steps at networking, was just asking questions. What do you do? You know, what led you into this career field, and just collecting those business cards. You know, I that was the next step. Getting those business cards, sending the follow-up email and everything, and just being friendly, just talking to people. You'd be surprised at how so many of us athletes, like, we have such amazing platforms. We have so much reach, right? We coming out now of high school with 20,000 followers, some of us, but we have no clue how to take that and actually turn it into something. And a lot of times, if you just reach out to people, just speak to people, say, hey, don't get so caught up in the game and the fact that you're trying to get this scholarship or you're trying to go pro, that you forget to interact with people. And I'll tell you another major thing that I did as well is I valued my experience. And one of the experiences that I valued and I took advantage of was getting interviewed. Why is that important? Because number one, every time you get interviewed by a newspaper, every time you're on television, you're effectively marketing you're essentially marketing yourself. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you. You good? Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, essentially you're having the opportunity to market yourself and build your personal brand. And so that means you can either get out there and you can either sound like, a lot of athletes do, that it's just like when they ask you a question, you're like, oh yeah, I made the play. Yeah, I just did what coach told me to do. Or you can give an articulate answer that showcases your knowledge, that lets people know that you're more than just an athlete. And maybe there's a CEO watching who's like, man, that's a great kid. I would love to hire them to my company one day. Right. And that's how you become memorable. Right. And so those little things like that I did, not only just doing a good job in those interviews, but also building relationships with the journalists and with the people who were interviewing me. And these are people who now, 10 years later, anytime I come out with a book, anytime I come out with a product or whatever, they're now promoting my service and my business and my books. The same people that used to watch me or interview me after games. So there's so many things like that that if you take advantage of now, these things will benefit you, 10 years, 20 years down the line.
Man, Rennie, that's a lot of value right there, man. A lot of gems were dropped on that one. So I appreciate you going deep on that because, it wasn't just about you networking for the sake of networking. Take advantage of now. That's what Darren Palmer says. Founder of Self Publishing 30 Days, the man himself. Take advantage of now. Yes, indeed. And what I love about what you shared, well, there's many things I love about it, but I wanted to pull this out of it. How you were talking about it's not just about you shaking hands and making those connections. That's a huge part of it. But it's also about how you present yourself, like you said in the interviews, making sure you're not just saying, "Yeah, I did it. We won the game," and that's it. You're
Right.
sharing yourself. You're sharing your knowledge. Another thing too is how you went into having that business mind. You didn't just want to meet the people in all these different departments. You wanted to understand it from a business perspective and peek behind the curtain to see what's going on. How's the money distributed? Taking a good look
Right.
because, like you said, you were a business major, and I know that even if you're not a business major in college, even if you're a professional athlete, just take some time and take Rennie's advice to be able to figure out the inner workings because you can learn from that and use that in your own life and in your own business. So good, man. I wanted to ask you this. This is kind of a little off topic, but I wanted to know since you mentioned it. You mentioned your father being a business owner, right? And obviously, you said he
Hmm.
has some ups and downs in his business. Do you think that watching your father being a business owner impacted you and kind of
Oh
having in
yeah.
the back of your mind? Yeah, you watching him made you want to do that for sure.
Yeah, that was definitely a big part of it. And, it's so empowering to see my dad, this guy who came as an immigrant from Liberia, who developed a skill set, right? So just like I talked about a skill, like he worked for the Liberian government before he came to Atlanta. And so like he developed a skill just like a lot of immigrants do. Like they just are trying to survive when they come here. They don't have their immigration papers. So they're in that place of desperation where they have to pick up something just to provide for their families. And so he picked up the skill of shoe repair. And so he would fix like designer shoes and cowboy boots and different things like that. But that's what paid not only paid the bills for us, but helped a lot of my uncles, aunts, cousins come to this country and start a whole new life, man. And just being able to see him, the grind that he had, and then also the fact that he was a black man who is in the position of authority, right? Just being able to call his own shots, uh, be in control of his own destiny, like that was so empowering to see. And the fact that like he was in this little 5 foot 500 square foot shop. It was a shoe repair shop, whatever. Just like when you go to the mall, you got the little stores and whatnot. And to see him interact with people, like he was a manager, he was an accountant, he did everything, and he was a customer service guy as well. And I saw him cuss a lot of people out. Like he didn't take no mess. Like just just to see him like interact with somebody, man, and let him know, hey, like you can either take it or leave it. And he didn't have nobody to answer to. Like it left a mark on me, man. Like at a young age, and so that's kind of the mentality that I started to develop. Like you can, you don't have to just go a certain route. You don't have to just get that 9 to 5. Like you can, you can take control of your destiny, man. And so as I moved on, and that was the good side of it. And another side of it, though, was the fact that I saw him also, which is another tough thing about being an entrepreneur or being an entertainer or athlete that we've talked about before, is that his business kind of became his identity. Being in that position of a breadwinner became his identity. So when he lost that business, it was like he lost himself. And so it was almost foreshadowing what I would eventually go through with my transition. But knowing that, and being able to see him go through that and see the fact that when he lost that business, he lost some money, he became like a shell of himself. But I still looked at him as my dad, right? I still saw him up here, even though he saw himself as down here. So I realized in that experience that like you could lose the business, you could lose the position, but that doesn't mean like you as a person have lost value, right? It just was such a revelation for me and such a blessing, even though it was one of the toughest times in his life. So when I did lose that position, right, of being an athlete, being a pro player, it's like I had that experience, right, of knowing that my position in life, the money, whatever, that wasn't my identity. I immediately thought back to him, man. So there was so many, lessons and just principles I learned from just watching him go through his experience as an entrepreneur.
Man, that's such an inspiring story, Rennie. Thank you for sharing that with us, man. That's a really cool story, and props to you for carrying the torch and just watching pops and studying him and being able to take that and move forward. Uh, Darren Palmer says your position doesn't define you. Amen. In sports, in
Yeah.
business, whatever you do, And
Yep.
Darren also said your self identity is so important. So, man, that is huge, man. Thank you for that, Rennie. Man, I know you got things to do. I want to be respectful of your time. Just one more quick question before we get you out of here, man. What is the
Sure.
future? What can people expect from you? I know you already have a lot of great things going on.
Yeah.
Just as as people continue to follow you and watch you continue to grow and have an impact on people, what can people expect, man?
Man, possibilities are endless. The speaking is really, really taking off. I'm working with a lot of different companies right now, not just doing the keynotes, but also doing workshops and then coaching. So doing a lot of that, man. If there's ever anybody out there who's listening right now that I can work with and help you take your business or your personal life to the next level, definitely feel free to reach out. And then outside of my business, I also have my nonprofit, the Game Changers Foundation. So we're going to be doing a lot there, just helping athletes, mentoring them, doing a lot of camps, doing some leadership events, some summits and different things. And I'm sure we'll be working together on that. And then I also have a sports startup, an app that I'm working on that's going to be the LinkedIn for athletes, and it's going to be launched in the next, I'd say, 2 to 3 months. Really fired up about that, man. So yeah, just like I said, the possibilities are endless, but those are the three main things that I'm working on now, and just excited, man. Every day is a new opportunity.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. That's exciting stuff, man. I'm definitely gonna be staying tuned for that app to drop. I'm gonna be waiting. I'm gonna be the first one to build a profile on there when it launches, man. Please believe.
Yes,
But yeah,
sir.
man.
Yes, sir.
Before we get out of here, Rennie, one more thing. Can you please tell people just how to get in touch with you and follow the journey and what's the best way to get in contact with you and all that good stuff?
Yeah, definitely. So the easiest way to get in contact with me is through my website, renniecurran.com. And that's where you can find out all the information and keep up to date with the events I have coming up and ways that you can work with me as well. And then on my social media, on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, all just at Rennie Curran. And yeah, love to hear from many of you all who are watching. Feel free to reach out to me if I can never help you. I'm always here. I mentor tons of athletes, so I'm always open book and just willing to serve. So yeah, hope to hear from you all.
Awesome. Well, Rennie, thank you again for setting aside some time, taking time out of your busy day with the family to come on here and share with us, man. This was invaluable. Everything that you shared, inspiring. You know, a lot of knowledge was dropped. So definitely appreciate all the work you do. I'm grateful that Thomas introduced us because you've been nothing but a light and the inspiration of my life. So I appreciate that, man. I hope you have a great rest of the day, and we'll be talking soon.
Yes, sir. I appreciate y'all having me, man, and appreciate what you're doing as well, bro. It's really, really awesome just reaching out. I feel like because of guys like yourself and so many others, man, in my life, that's how I am where I am today. I had so many mentors and people who created events like this and just like really gave me that knowledge, man. So yeah, appreciate what you're doing as well.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Rennie. I received that, brother. I'll let you get back to
Yes,
your
sir.
family, man. You have a good one. Appreciate you.
All right, then later.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, that'll do it. Another Athlete to Entrepreneur panel. This was another great one as always. I want to thank the team at Self-Published in 30 Days for making this vision come to life, for always supporting me with all the projects I'm working on. Make sure you visit selfpublishing30days.com. If you are writing a book, thinking about writing a book, reach out to me directly. I'll get you set up with the team. Make sure you get pointed in the right direction. This is also brought to you by the Thrive After Sport. You see it behind me. I'm almost pointing in the right direction. Thrive After Sports. You can get the book at thriveaftersportsbook.com or just go to tajkashan.com and click book. Everyone have a safe Memorial Day weekend. Thank you for being here with us. We'll see you next month for the 9th Athlete Entrepreneur panel. You guys take care. We'll see you soon. Peace.